There's something no one tells you about spiritual awakening. Surviving it is only half the journey. You see, the real challenge begins after the visions fade, the intense emotions settle, and you're left with this raw, unshakable awareness that life will never be the same. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." But what happens after you pass through that pain? What happens when the storm ends and you're standing on unfamiliar ground with no map, no compass, and no going back? Today, we'll explore exactly what to do next, not to survive, but to truly live after awakening. Many people imagine awakening as a blissful moment, a permanent state of peace and clarity. But those who've truly experienced it know it's messy, it shakes your identity, burns away false beliefs, and sometimes leave you feeling like a stranger in your own life. You might even feel grief for the old self you've left behind. Jung understood this better than most. The awakening process dismantles the ego's illusions, but what follows is integration, not escape. This video is for you if you walked through that fire and now ask, what now? How do I carry this new consciousness into the ordinary moments of life? Let's go step by step. Surviving awakening is like waking up in a new country. Everything is familiar and yet completely different. The colors seem brighter, conversations feel deeper, but your old routines can feel hollow. This is where integration comes in. Jung emphasized that enlightenment means bringing the light into the everyday, not abandoning it for some mountaintop. Start with small, deliberate choices that reflect your new awareness. Maybe preparing food with intention, listening to music that nourishes your spirit, or making space for silence in your mornings. These seemingly simple acts become anchors that remind you of who you've become. Integration also means letting go of the awakening high, that intense period of spiritual adrenaline. Instead, learn to embrace the ordinary as sacred. Notice the warmth of a coffee cup in your hand, the sound of rain, the way sunlight filters through a window. These are not distractions from your spiritual life. They are your spiritual life now. One common pitfall is trying to perform your awakening, acting overly mystical or detached. Remember, the point is authenticity, not perfection. You can still watch a movie, laugh at silly jokes, or enjoy your favorite meal without betraying your growth. Jung taught that the self seeks wholeness, not constant transcendence. That means accepting that life after awakening includes bills, traffic, misunderstandings, and laundry. The difference is how you meet them, with presence instead of autopilot, with compassion instead of judgment. Your daily life is now the training ground for your consciousness. Treat each moment as both teacher and mirror. After a spiritual awakening, it's tempting to believe the shadow has been left behind, that all inner darkness has been dissolved by the light of your new awareness. But Carl Jung warned against this illusion. The shadow doesn't vanish. It evolves. It becomes more subtle, more clever, and sometimes even cloaks itself in spiritual language. Shadow work after awakening is less about dramatic breakdowns and more about noticing the quiet ways your unconscious still influences you. Maybe it's the irritation you feel towards someone who reminds you of an old version of yourself. Maybe it's a subtle pride in being more aware than others. These moments are opportunities, not failures. The ongoing inner dialogue begins with radical honesty. Jung believed that without confronting the shadow, we risk falling into what he called inflation of the ego, where the ego identifies with a higher self and believes it's beyond error. That's a dangerous trap because it blinds us to our remaining blind spots. Practical shadow work at this stage might look like journaling about your triggers, observing your emotional reactions without justification, or asking trusted friends to mirror your blind spots. Meditation helps, but so does raw, unfiltered conversation with yourself. What am I avoiding? Where am I pretending? Where am I still afraid? You'll notice that the more light you brought into your being, the more you'll see the fine cracks in your foundation. This isn't regression, it's refinement. The awakening cracked the outer shell. Now the real sculpting begins. One of the most liberating aspects of shadow work post-awakening is that you can hold the tension between light and dark without collapsing into shame. You've learned that darkness is not an enemy but a teacher, a messenger pointing to areas where love has not yet been allowed to enter. Over time, you'll find that this inner dialogue softens you. You become less reactive, less invested in being right, and more curious about your own depths. The shadow becomes less like a hidden adversary and more like an old companion who occasionally knocks on your door with lessons you didn't know you needed. And perhaps the greatest gift is this: the deeper you go into your own shadow, the more compassion you can offer to others walking their own path, because you've seen both the storm and the stillness within yourself. After the whirlwind of spiritual awakening, your nervous system often needs time to catch up with your consciousness. The sudden expansion of awareness can be exhilarating, but it can also be destabilizing, leaving you sensitive to noise, conflict, or even the subtle shifts in a room's energy. Jung understood that the psyche cannot sustain constant intensity. It needs balance. This is where building resilience becomes essential. Think of it as strengthening the container that holds your expanded awareness. Without a strong container, even profound insights can leak away or leave you feeling drained. Emotional resilience starts with recognizing your triggers before they hijack your state of being. This might mean creating daily check-ins with yourself. How is my body feeling? What's my emotional tone right now? What needs my attention? These small acts of self-inquiry keep you anchored instead of swept away by waves of emotion. Energetic resilience, on the other hand, is about managing the flow of energy in and out of your system. Practices like breath work, grounding exercises, or simply placing your bare feet on the earth can recalibrate your energy field. Diet, sleep, and movement also play a larger role than most people realize. Your spiritual clarity is amplified when your body is cared for like a sacred vessel. Boundaries are another key element. After awakening, you might feel more empathy, which can also make you more vulnerable to absorbing others' emotional burdens. Learning to say no without guilt and to step back from draining environments is an act of self-preservation, not selfishness. Jung spoke about the need for individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself. Resilience supports individuation by giving you the stability to act from your center rather than reacting from old wounds. It's not about becoming unshakable in a cold, rigid way, but rather flexible like a tree that bends with the wind without breaking. Over time, you'll notice that emotional storms no longer throw you into survival mode. Instead, they become opportunities to test and deepen your grounding. You start to trust yourself in moments of chaos, knowing that your inner anchor holds. This combination of emotional steadiness and energetic stability allows you not just to maintain the awakening, but to embody it, to carry that expanded consciousness into every interaction, every challenge, and every quiet moment of your life. One of the most unexpected aftershocks of spiritual awakening is the feeling of disconnection from the world around you. Conversations that once felt engaging may now seem shallow. Crowds might feel overwhelming. And yet, Jung reminded us that individuation is not about withdrawing from society. It's about bringing your true self into it. After awakening, your task is to find where your expanded awareness meets the needs of collective. This doesn't necessarily mean starting a spiritual business or leading retreats. Sometimes your place is found in the quiet spaces, listening deeply to a friend, offering kindness to a stranger, creating art that carries the energy of your transformation. The key is authenticity. The collective doesn't need another version of the ideal awakened being. It needs you, with your unique voice, your imperfect humanity, and your willingness to be real. Jung believed that true healing for society begins with the individual who dares to live from their own center, not from the demands of conformity. Finding your place also involves discernment. You may feel called to share your insights, but not everyone will be ready to hear them. Instead of trying to convince or convert, focus on embodying your truth. People are drawn to authenticity more than they are persuaded by arguments. Connection after awakening is different. It's less about shared opinions and more about shared presence. You might find yourself drawn to people who value depth, who can sit with silence, or who are curious about life's mysteries. These relationships become part of your support system, helping you stay grounded while also expanding. You'll also need to navigate the paradox of feeling different without falling into separation. The temptation to see yourself as apart from the collective, either above or outside of it, can lead to isolation. Jung warned of the danger of spiritual elitism, which can become just another form of ego inflation. The truth is, your awakening does not make you more valuable than others. It simply gives you a different perspective and responsibility. When you find your place in collective, you become a living bridge, someone who carries the insights of the inner world into the shared reality of the outer world. In doing so, you help to subtly shift the collective consciousness, one genuine interaction at a time. The greatest misunderstanding about spiritual awakening is thinking it's the finish line. In reality, it's the doorway, and stepping through it is just the beginning of a lifelong exploration. Jung understood this deeply. The psyche is vast, layered, and endlessly mysterious. The moment we believe we've arrived, we stop growing. Humility becomes your compass here. It's the awareness that no matter how much you've seen, there's infinitely more beyond your current understanding. It's the willingness to be surprised, to be wrong, and to allow life to reveal itself in ways you couldn't predict. Awakening has taught you that certainty is often a cage, and openness is the real freedom. Curiosity, in turn, keeps the path alive. Instead of trying to recreate the dramatic highs of your awakening, you start asking new questions. What else is here for me to learn? How can I deepen my compassion? What parts of myself remain unexplored? These questions don't demand quick answers. They invite you into deeper relationship with the mystery itself. Practically, this means staying engaged with practices that nourish your growth, reading works that challenge your perspective, learning from teachers who speak to your soul, and perhaps most importantly, listening to your own inner guidance. Over time, you'll notice that wisdom arises less from external sources and more from a quiet knowing that lives within you. Humility also softens the edges of your interactions with others. You no longer need to prove your insights or defend your experiences. You understand that everyone's journey unfolds in its own time, and you become less attached to being understood and more committed to understanding. Curiosity helps you remain adaptable. Life will continue to shift, relationships will change, challenges will arise, and new layers of the psyche will surface. Instead of resisting, you meet these moments with the same openness that carried you through the awakening itself. In this stage, your life becomes less about chasing the next revelation and more about embodying the truths you've already touched. You walk with the awareness that you are both a student and a participant in the unfolding of the greater whole. The path after awakening is not about reaching a final state. It's about living fully, learning endlessly, and allowing the mystery to keep you humble, present, and profoundly alive. So here you are, not just someone who has survived a spiritual awakening, but someone who is learning to live from it. You've stepped through the fire, integrated the lessons into daily life, faced your shadow without turning away, built the emotional and energetic strength to hold your new awareness, found your place in collective, and committed to walking forward with humility and curiosity. But here's the truth. The journey never really ends. Awakening isn't a one-time event. It's a rhythm that moves through your life again and again, each cycle bringing new challenges, new revelations, and new depths of self-awareness. And that's not something to fear, it's something to embrace. Carl Jung believed that the purpose of life was not perfection, but wholeness. Wholeness means being willing to meet every part of yourself, the light, the shadow, the joy, the pain, and allowing them to coexist within you. It means showing up for life exactly as it is, knowing that every moment is an invitation to deepen your connection to the self. As you continue, remember this: your awakening is not just for you. Every time you choose presence over autopilot, compassion over judgment, truth over comfort, you're shaping the collective field we all share. Your smallest acts, the kind word, the patient listening, the quiet integrity, become part of something far larger than you can see. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is this: you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to keep walking, keep listening, keep showing up. The path after awakening is not a straight road. It's a living conversation between you and the mystery. If this message has resonated with you, I invite you to share your own experience in the comments. What has been the hardest part after your awakening? Your story might be the exact thing someone else needs to hear today. And if you want to keep exploring these deeper truths, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. This community is here to walk alongside you, because awakening is not a solo journey, and together we go further. So take a breath, step forward, and remember, surviving the awakening was your first miracle. Living from it will be your lifelong masterpiece.